Also, we did want to say to all of you, thank you all so much to those of you who have been signing up for premium memberships, who've been helping us out as we are building the new studio. We showed everybody the lights there. I did receive some troubling news, Krystal. The monthly members feel as if they're being left out. So let's all be very clear. We love the monthlies. We have no favorites. We were only shouting out yearly and lifetime because that helps. That helps in terms of cash flow realizing at this moment. But the idea that we don't love and appreciate you is ridiculous. Yes, exactly.
I also want to say, for people who aren't in a position where they can sign up as premium subscribers, Kyle's million sub plaque arrived from YouTube, and I am a little bit jealous.
There you go.
It's really nice.
Yeah,
and guys,
cool.
We're getting kind of close. We're at like 950 this morning. We're starting to knock on the door. So if you're not able to do the premium membership, totally get it. Times are tough. Inflation is biting, etc. At least, subscribe on the YouTube channel.
That's a great point.
That's a nice thing as well.
If you can subscribe, or honestly share the show with a friend, like text the show to a friend, or we pay $0 in marketing costs. Part of the reason we're investing much of your hard-earned business into our show is because we understand that is like a force multiplier in terms of the ability for you to share it, for others to share it. So it all comes full circle. And of course, if you can't sign up, if times are tough or whatever, watch the video, listen on Spotify, share it with a friend or something. It actually really helps us out. For everybody else, though, who can help us out, breakingpoints.com. Monthly, yearly, lifetime, whichever you prefer. I also forgot to say yesterday, we do have a donation button on the website if that's something that you prefer, although we would, of course, love to have you as a premium member just so you can get all the benefits. But keep all of that in mind, and just know, to all of you and to all of the existing monthly, yearly, and lifetime members, we love you very, very dearly, especially to those who can help us in this time, just because you guys, we're all on a ride together. And I think it's really cool, especially in the context of BuzzFeed is dead, 538 is dead, now Vice is going bankrupt. I mean, which is insane. I don't think I would be sitting at this desk if it wasn't for Shane Smith's Vice Guide to North Korea. And, we're going to avoid all the mistakes that they made over there.
Trying to learn from the pitfalls of the past, for sure. But, I mean, it does create a real, you don't cheer for anyone, certainly, to lose their job. But it does show you there's a real opening in the media landscape.
That's right.
And a real void to be filled at a moment when, we're heading into yet another critical presidential election where a lot of people who maybe aren't normal political consumers are starting to dip their toe in the water, starting to think about, okay, what do I think about these issues? Where do I stand with regards to this election? And we would love to, have a setup where we can welcome them and they feel like it's the level of professionalism that they could get in other places as well.
Exactly right. And we are also very happy to be able to just take, 1 or 2 minutes out of our day here, rather than have the new studio brought to you by Pfizer or anything, or
we would
brought to you by First Mutual Bank or First Republic Bank. Maybe
well, everything would be brought to you by Chase at this point, since they own the entire world.
Brought to you by Chase, the Manscaped Chase Studio, or it could be the Breaking Point Studio, entirely funded by all of you. So we love you and we thank you all very much. Let's get to the news here on artificial intelligence. Absolutely extraordinary development yesterday. Let's put this up there on the screen. The quote-unquote Godfather of AI has left Google and is now warning of dangers ahead. The so-called Godfather of AI's name is Geoffrey Hinton. He's actually a scientist in his 70s who has been working in the AI field since the 1970s, Krystal. His company was actually bought by and acquired by Google in 2012, and he's been at the forefront of AI development now for decades. He actually won the Turing Award along with some colleagues, and which is basically considered the Nobel Prize of computing. Now, within that, what is Dr. Hinton saying? Dr. Hinton is warning that bad actors could use AI to supplant humanity, possibly. He is warning that the previous idea, which he thought was far-fetched, which is that AI could at one point match human intelligence and even go beyond, is much closer than is previously known. He quit Google specifically because he wanted the ability to speak out, not just against the company, but against AI development and call for better regulation around it. But really what opened my eyes was he sees this as a race to the bottom, because he believed while working at Google that they were taking their best steps to responsibly develop this product. But then what changed everything? Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI and the integration of ChatGPT into the Bing search system. That has lit a fire inside of Google for the first competition, really, that they have faced in, what, decades, you know, in the history of the entire company. Basically, ever since they've created AdWords, they've been printing money over there, and they've always enjoyed basically a monopoly on search. For the very first time, they believe that they have an existential threat to their business, which means they are much more likely to discard any safeguards that they might have in place and go forward in developing technology, which you can't take it away. Once you go forward, it's in the system, and it's out in the sphere, and then other countries could use it. He's also especially concerned, Krystal, about the use of AI robots in combat, something that he currently sees as inevitable too.
Yeah, in fact, he spent his career avoiding. He actually went and worked in Canada for part of his career because he wanted to avoid taking any Pentagon funding for AI because he's very opposed to these systems being used on the battlefield, which shows you this is, I think, a principled person, number one. Number two, I really recommend people read through not just this one, but we're going to highlight a few warnings from other people who are serious, thoughtful experts in the subject. And even if you think what Dr. Hinton is saying and what some of the others are saying is overwrought, if there is a 1% chance that they are correct, we have to take dramatic action. I mean, some of these experts are warning this could literally be the end of humanity. Now, is that like guaranteed? No. Do I have any way really of assessing whether that's overwrought or not? I don't know. If there's even a 1%, if there's even a 0.1% chance that they're correct, we should be taking dramatic action. So that's the frame within which I'm, viewing all of these comments and all of this analysis. Let me read you a few of his words just to give you a sense of him and what he's arguing specifically. He says that he consoles himself for his involvement in developing this AI with the normal excuse: if I hadn't done it, somebody else would have. It is hard to see how you can prevent the bad actors from using it for bad things. Maybe what's going on in these systems, he goes on to say, is actually better than what is going on in the brain. The idea that this stuff could get smarter than people, a few people believe that, but most people thought it was way off. I thought it was way off. I thought it was 30 to 50 years or even longer away. Obviously, I no longer think that. He compares the development of this AI to basically a nuclear arms race and says it should be handled in at least as aggressive a manner, but also points out that it's actually more difficult to deal with than that because, there are telltale signs when a country like, North Korea, Iran, whoever, is developing a nuclear weapon. There are ways for us to see. This would be a lot easier to hide. So even if you have some sort of a global agreement to shut down the development of this AI until we can, wrap our hands around it at the very least, to be able to police that would be extraordinarily difficult. They say, unlike with nuclear weapons, there's no way of knowing whether companies or countries are working on the technology in secret. The best hope is the world's leading scientists to collaborate on ways of controlling the technology. He goes on to say, I don't think they should scale this up more until they have understood whether they can control it. And that's one of the key pieces here is with these large language models. Even the people who, are developing the technology don't really fully understand what's going on under the hood because you sort of turn this thing loose and feed it all of this information from, the web and other sources, and then you let it go and do its thing. And so that's why you end up with Sydney, the Bing chatbot, sort of going rogue and professing her quote-unquote love to Kevin Roose, this New York Times reporter. These are not behaviors that the people who designed this AI expected Sydney to engage in. So it just shows you that even the people who are the experts in the field, who are developing the technology right now, even they don't really know what's going on under the surface and what sort of results it could ultimately lead to.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. It's also, there are several canaries in the coal mine who now look a lot better and were treated than at the time. One of them is Blake Lemoine. Let's put this up there on the screen. He's that former Google engineer who actually went viral about a year ago whenever he went on the record with the Washington Post to warn that Google's language system had come to life and achieved sentience. He was actually widely mocked at the time. Not going to deny, definitely has some interesting personal beliefs, religious, but hey, it's a free country. And one of the things, though, that he says is he worked on, so-called AI ethics. He's a longtime engineer, and he was absolutely convinced that sentience and some sort of feeling had been achieved by the system and that it was being hidden by Google. Now, here's the thing. At the time, everybody thought he was kind of crazy, as I said, alluding to his own personal religious issues. But the point is that now if the so-called Godfather of AI, the Nobel Prize winning in computing, a decades-long Google employee and one of the heads of the program, is now coming out and vindicating, at least somewhat, what Blake Lemoine was saying in that article, I think we have to take it a lot more seriously, Krystal.
Yeah, and it gets into these technical discussions about, okay, well, what is sentience technically, and how would you test it? I mean, the old test used to be, could you have a conversation with this thing and not know that it wasn't human? Well, we've clearly, we've flown by that. And he argues that, in a sense, the question of sentience is kind of a distraction, because whether or not it has self-awareness may not be the most relevant question in terms of what it means for humanity and what it means for the world and how it behaves in the world. So he says, I don't like playing those word games with regards to whether or not it's sentient, but if it makes some people feel better, use the right vocabulary, okay, fine, whatever floats your boat. What it comes down to is that we aren't spending enough time on transparency or model understandability. I'm of the opinion that we could be using the scientific investigative tools that psychology has come up with to understand human cognition, both to understand existing AI systems and to develop ones that are more easily controllable and understandable. That gets to what I was saying before about how even the people that are developing these things don't really understand what's going on underneath the hood and what sort of results that will end up with the AI achieving. He also talks about the fact, and I think this is really important, that what we have seen as a public, that is not the furthest bleeding edge of where this technology is. So he says by the time the public learns about an AI product, the companies who built it, they've vetted their PR story, they've consulted with their lawyers, they've potentially lobbied regulators to get preferential legislation passed. He says that's one of the things I always dislike. Tech companies will try to get legislation passed that will govern technology that regulators do not yet know even exists. So that's the game that they're playing in Washington. He goes on to say they still have far more advanced tech that they have not made publicly available. The system he was playing with, when he came to the conclusion this thing has some sort of sentient awareness, he describes it as heavily multimodal, not just incorporating images, but incorporating sounds, giving it access to the Google Books API, that stands for Application Programming Index, giving it access to essentially every API backend that Google had, and allowing it to just gain an understanding of it all. That's the one that I was like, this thing's awake, and they haven't let the public play with that one yet. But Bard, which is the Google AI, is kind of a simplified version of that, so it still has a lot of the kind of liveliness of that model. So as much as what we've seen publicly is sort of mind-blowing and a little bit terrifying, what these companies have that they haven't turned loose to the public is, orders of magnitude more advanced. So what's going on there? What's going on underneath the hood there? What are the implications of that? I don't think there's a person on the planet who can really say with certainty.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. There's another important point. It's kind of like with computers. By the time it's off the assembly line, it's completely obsolete relative to what they're developing in, let's say, Apple Labs or inside of Microsoft or any of these other places. It's probably 2 to 3 years out of date. That's the case with any mass consumable technology. And especially in the realm of software, what is completely experimental versus what is being shipped is huge, massively apart. And anyway, I think we should really heed his words, the Godfather of AI, and I think this is, this will remain one of the biggest stories in the world.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.